My name is Emily Hart, and I paid for my sister's mortgage in secret, just to feel like I mattered to someone in this family. But when I finally stopped, I didn't scream or slam a door. I simply let the bank call her during Sunday dinner, then watched her choke on her lie as I quietly passed the salt. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. This story might hit a little too close to home. It started, as these things often do, with a whispered promise in the dark. Not from a stranger, but from my sister. Vanessa and I were alone in the kitchen that evening, our parents already upstairs, the old floors creaking under their retreating footsteps. The house smelled like leftover spaghetti and pine sol, a weird mix that somehow felt familiar, even comforting. I was drying the dishes when she turned to me, voice low and urgent. "Emily," she said, glancing at the stairwell like someone might be listening. "I need your help, just for a few months." That tone. The one she used when she wanted something big but planned to make it sound small. She leaned against the counter with the casual elegance she'd always had, even barefoot and in a stained hoodie. "It's the mortgage," she said. "I'm behind. I haven't told Mom and Dad because, well, you know how they worry, especially about me." I blinked. "Behind? How far behind?" She laughed softly like it was silly. "Just a couple payments. It's not that bad. But if they find out, they'll think I can't handle anything and I can't take that right now. I'm building something with my blog, Emily. It's finally getting traction. I just need a little more time." I kept folding the dish towel over and over, my fingers suddenly cold. "You want me to cover it?" "Just until spring," she rushed in. "3 months max. You can afford it, right? I mean, you have that new job. And they'd be so disappointed if they thought I was failing. Please don't make me tell them." I hesitated. "They'd understand if—" "No," she cut in quickly. "You don't get it, they already think I'm a flake." I wanted to argue, to tell her that they still saw her as the golden girl, that they never missed an opportunity to praise her. But I didn't, because I wasn't in the habit of contradicting Vanessa, or anyone really. "Okay," I said. She exhaled like she'd just taken off a heavy coat. "Thank you, Em, seriously. I'll tell them eventually, I promise. Just not yet." Then she grinned, actually grinned, and kissed my cheek before skipping off like she hadn't just dropped a silent weight onto my shoulders. I stood there for a long time, staring at the sink. That moment should have felt like love, like trust, but instead it felt like something else entirely. It felt like a trade, and I hadn't even asked what I was getting in return. I logged into my bank account that night, heart pounding. She sent me the loan number. The balance wasn't small, but it was manageable. I made the first payment the next morning before work. A ridiculous sense of pride swelled in my chest. They'd see it soon, I told myself. Maybe not immediately, but eventually someone would notice. Mom would mention how smooth things had gone lately, and Vanessa would say, "Oh, Emily's been helping." Dad would nod approvingly, maybe even smile. I'd earned something. Recognition maybe, a thank you, or just a glance that said, "We see you too." But days passed, then weeks. And nothing. Vanessa came and went, always breezy, always full of big plans and half-baked launch ideas. "I'm building a lifestyle brand," she said one night over tacos. "You should see my analytics, spikes all over the place." Mom beamed. "You've always had that spark, sweetie." I chewed my tortilla slowly. Vanessa never brought up the mortgage again, not a word. Not even when I texted to confirm the second payment. The silence didn't surprise me, but it did hurt. House looked extra polished that night, like someone had gone out of their way to make it sparkle, even though it was just another family dinner. I recognized the effort. It was Vanessa's style. A little too perfect, a little too curated, like she thought the table setting might end up on her blog. I brought a casserole. I always bring something. "Emily, you're early," Mom said as she took the dish from my hands. Her eyes flitted past me, already on the table. "Do you want it in the oven or just?" "Oh, I'll handle it," she said, distracted. "Vanessa just got here too. She's been working so hard lately." Of course she had. I walked into the dining room where Dad was setting the water glasses. His phone chimed and he smiled, typing something quickly before tucking it away. Probably another one of Vanessa's posts. He'd recently figured out how to like things on Instagram, and now he couldn't stop. Vanessa swept in behind me, twirling once to show off her new haircut. Shoulder-length, caramel blonde, expensive-looking. "Thoughts?" she asked, striking a faux model pose near the coat rack. Mom clapped. "Stunning, that color is perfect on you. Did you get it done at Carly's?" "Of course," Vanessa beamed. "You know I can't trust anyone else with layers." "It frames your face beautifully," Mom added. "You always know what suits you." I took my seat at the corner of the table, the same chair I'd always sat in. Slightly creaky, a little too low. "Emily, could you pass the potatoes?" Dad asked as soon as we started eating. I did. No one commented on my haircut, trimmed just last week, though I hadn't posted about it. No one asked about work. About my new role in finance, the one I had spent months grinding toward. The one with the long hours and the higher paycheck. The one that made it possible to quietly pay my sister's mortgage. I glanced at Vanessa. She was glowing under the kitchen's warm light, laughing as she described her latest partnership with some vitamin company. "It's mostly gut health and lifestyle alignment," she said, stabbing a green bean with her fork, "but I'm going to build out a whole content arc around it." Mom leaned forward like she was listening to a TED Talk. "That's brilliant. You're such a self-starter, honey." "She always has been," Dad agreed. I looked down at my plate. My stomach nodded, food untouched. I couldn't tell if I felt invisible or if I was just used to the feeling by now. Vanessa reached for the breadbasket. "Did I tell you the editor from Local Living reached out?" she asked, grinning. "Wants to do a spotlight on young women balancing passion with purpose. I think they're going to feature the house, too." "Isn't that wild?" The house. My breath caught for a second. "Isn't that your house?" I wanted to ask. The one she hadn't paid for in 3 months until I stepped in. But the words caught behind my teeth. Dad looked proud. "Just don't forget your old man when you're famous." "I'll give you a shout-out on my podcast," she teased. They all laughed. I swallowed a dry bite of casserole. This was the same room I had saved from foreclosure. I'd covered 3 mortgage payments on time in full without a single hiccup. And still here I was. Vanessa was praised for being resourceful. I was just here, still. "I saw the electric bill went down," Mom said, pouring more water into Vanessa's glass. "Must be those new LED bulbs you mentioned, honey." I blinked. I was the one who switched out every fixture last month while Vanessa was working on content. I even labeled the breakers. My throat burned, but I smiled. "That was me," I said softly. No one heard me, or maybe they did and chose not to respond. Vanessa launched into a story about a brand trip possibility in Arizona. Just a weekend thing, but with spa credits and a whole itinerary. Like wellness meets wanderlust, you know. Mom nodded like she did know. Dad was already looking it up on his phone. I stabbed a piece of broccoli with more force than necessary. It wasn't even about the money anymore. Not really. It was about the quiet. The way I kept showing up and shrinking down at the same time. The way they let me. The room was warm. The candles flickered. From the outside, it probably looked like a perfect family dinner, but I felt like a shadow at my own table. That night after dinner, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan spinning overhead, slow, steady, uncaring. The silence of my apartment wasn't peaceful. It was loud with everything I didn't say. 3 mortgage payments, dozens of quiet sacrifices. And still, they asked me to pass the potatoes like that was the most I could offer. My phone buzzed once. A message from Vanessa. "Thanks again for dinner." Mom and Dad were in such a good mood. XO sparkling heart, she didn't mention the mortgage. She never did. I turned my phone face down and rolled over, but sleep didn't come. Instead, memories crawled out of their hiding places, dusty, sharp-edged things I hadn't invited but couldn't ignore anymore. I don't remember my 10th birthday party. Not the cake, not the guests, not the presents. Because it didn't happen. What I do remember is Vanessa sobbing in the living room because the costume she wanted for her Halloween parade hadn't arrived in time. Mom promised to drive across town to find one just like it. "Emily will understand," she said. "Her birthday isn't until next week." My birthday was that day, but that detail didn't seem to matter much. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, party hat still in place, watching my mother frantically zip up a plastic princess dress over Vanessa's head. "There," Mom said. "See, all better, you're going to win that contest for sure." And she did, first place. Most creative. I stood in the background of the photo they took of her that day, barely visible, holding an empty juice box and biting the inside of my cheek. That was the day I learned how to disappear. In therapy the next week, I finally told Dr. Brooks. "I know it's not a big thing," I said, staring at the leg of her chair. "It's not traumatic, just a costume, just a birthday, I don't even know why I remember it." She paused, letting the silence breathe before answering. "It's not about the costume," she said gently. "It's about the message." "What message?" "That your needs can wait. That someone else's crisis, no matter how small, is always more important than your joy. The words hit like a punch I hadn't braced for. I nodded slowly, then looked at her. Sometimes I wonder if I ever learned how to take up space. Dr. Brooks leaned in, her expression soft. What would taking up space look like for you? I didn't answer right away. I wanted to say, screaming at Sunday dinner, demanding back pay with interest, selling my silence for applause, but I didn't want revenge, I just wanted to be seen. I thought, I began slowly, that paying Vanessa's mortgage would be my moment, like maybe this one big selfless thing would finally tip the scale. Dr. Brooks didn't interrupt. But nothing tipped. They didn't even notice the scale was broken. There it was. The honest ache behind every polite smile, every casserole, every glass of past potatoes. That night, I dug out an old shoebox from my closet. It held things I hadn't looked at in years. Report cards, certificates, piano recital programs, relics of a quiet girl who had done everything right. I pulled out one photo, a Polaroid from 4th grade. Vanessa stood grinning in the center, wearing the winning costume, some sparkly, store-bought fairy get-up. Our parents flanked her, all three faces bright with celebration. And there I was, far left, half-cropped, wearing a sweatshirt with a crooked paper crown I'd made in class. I stared at that photo for a long time, not in sadness exactly, more in recognition. She was always the star, and I was always the lighting crew necessary but unseen. On impulse, I called Vanessa. It was late, but I didn't care. She picked up on the third ring, her voice sleepy. Everything okay? I didn't respond right away. I was thinking, I said finally, about your blog, the article you mentioned, the one where they want to feature the house. Oh yeah, local living, why? Are you going to tell them it's not yours? A beat of silence. Then softly, Emily, it's a fair question, she sighed. Technically it is mine, I mean it's in my name. Is it still in your name if you're not paying for it? The question hung in the air like a too bright light. Vanessa didn't answer. Not really. I told you I'd pay you back. You never even brought it up. Silence. I almost apologized. Almost said it's fine, just to smooth it over. But I didn't, not this time. Instead, I let the quiet sit between us, uncomfortable and unrelenting. And then I ended the call, no explosion, no scene, just a boundary drawn softly, but unmistakably, in the space where my silence used to be. Dr. Brooks's office always smelled like lavender and ink. Not artificial lavender, real, rich herbal. And the ink smell came from a stack of clean notebooks she kept on a shelf behind her chair, as if someone might suddenly decide to write everything down. That day I almost did. It had been 4 months since I started paying Vanessa's mortgage. 3 months since my parents praised her blog for pulling her life together. And 2 weeks since I called her out, gently, over the phone, about the truth. Vanessa hadn't responded to that call. She didn't deny it, but she didn't acknowledge it either. She just stopped texting for a while, and when she did reach out again, it was to ask if I had the Wi-Fi password because her router was acting weird. She wasn't even home. She was at my parents' house again, probably borrowing Dad's old recliner and Mom's sympathy. So, Dr. Brooks said, crossing her legs, how's the silence treating you? I let out a bitter laugh. Louder than you'd think. I paused. Actually, I've been thinking about my birthday. She glanced up. The one coming up or the last one? The last one, I said. They forgot it, again. Dr. Brooks nodded, waiting. I didn't say anything, I continued. I made reservations for all of us at that little place downtown Lillian's, I booked it a month in advance. I even reminded Mom. And they canceled the day before. Vanessa wasn't feeling well. I looked down at my hands. I still went. Alone. Just so they wouldn't charge my card. Dr. Brooks tilted her head slightly. Did you ever tell them how that made you feel? I gave her a look. No, I admitted. Why not? I thought maybe if I didn't make a fuss, they'd remember next year or feel guilty or something. She smiled gently, but not with pity, with recognition. Emily, your entire family dynamic is built on the belief that your silence equals love, that your invisibility makes their lives easier. I swallowed. I thought doing things for them would make them see me. And now, I laughed once. Now I think they've trained themselves not to look. We sat in silence for a moment. She didn't push me, she never did, but she didn't rescue me either. Eventually I said, I don't know why it still hurts. I mean, I'm grown. I have a job, I live on my own. I don't need them to clap every time I breathe. But I guess I thought being the good daughter, the one who never needs anything, would eventually earn me something. What do you think that something is? I didn't say love. That felt too fragile, too loaded. Instead, I said, a moment. Dr. Brooks raised an eyebrow. A moment. Yeah, a moment where they stop, look at me, and really see me. Say, Emily, we know what you've done, and we're sorry we didn't see it sooner. Something like that. She nodded slowly. What if that moment never comes? I didn't answer, because I already knew. A week later, I was back in my apartment, sitting cross-legged on the floor with my laptop open. My finances were spread out across the screen: payment confirmations, email receipts, bank statements. I had paid 4 months of Vanessa's mortgage. It was time for the fifth, but I didn't click submit. Instead, I opened a blank document. At the top, I typed, for them. That's what I'd written on the manila folder where I kept all my receipts. For them, like a tribute, like a monument. I started writing a simple list: dates, amounts, confirmation numbers. Then I added comments beside each line. Things I'd missed because I was too busy covering Vanessa's bills. Lunch with my friend Sarah canceled. New shoes for work postponed. Therapy copay delayed. I stared at the list. It wasn't just money. It was time, presence, emotion. I had spent months investing in a ghost version of myself, one they might love if only they knew she existed. I stared at the last line, scheduled payment for June, $0, and for the first time since that night in the kitchen, I smiled. That Saturday morning was quiet, sunny, a little too bright for my mood, but nice in that early summer sort of way. I made coffee and watched the birds bicker on my balcony rail. Then I opened my banking app and canceled the autopay. It took 10 seconds. I expected to feel afraid or guilty, but I didn't. What I felt was a strange calm. I sat back in my chair and whispered to no one, let's see what happens now. My birthday landed on a Wednesday that year. No one remembered, no call, no text. Not even a "hey, did something happen today?" from Vanessa, but I remembered. I'd even taken the day off work, partly out of hope, mostly out of instinct. Hope that maybe they'd surprise me this time. Instinct that told me they wouldn't. Around 3 p.m., I got a voicemail from my mother. I remember the exact tone before I even hit play. Hi Emily, just wondering if you could bring sparkling water to dinner on Sunday. Vanessa's bringing that couscous salad everyone loves, oh, and she has such exciting news. Anyway, see you soon. Not a word about the day, not even an accidental happy Wednesday. I sat in silence on my couch, phone in hand, heart strangely still. I wasn't angry. That would have required more hope than I had left. I was just tired. Later that evening, I took myself to dinner. Alone. A little Italian place on the edge of town, dim lights, candles in old wine bottles. I didn't order dessert, I came home to silence. And that's when it happened, when everything started to unspool. I poured myself a glass of water, set it down. My hand trembled, the glass slipped. Crashed. Water soaked into the floor and my pants. The sound echoed sharper somehow in the quiet. I knelt to clean it, but my fingers shook so badly I just sat there on the kitchen tile, knees wet, heart hollow. All that time, all those months, and not even a postcard. Sunday dinner, same house, same table, different air. I walked in with the sparkling water, quiet as ever. Vanessa greeted me with a kiss on the cheek, already halfway into a story about her big reveal. I'm launching a course, she beamed. Branding for digital creators, like a full 6-week program. Dad clapped. Now that's entrepreneurial spirit. Mom smiled wide. We're so proud of you, honey, you just keep surprising us. I set the bottles down, said nothing. At some point, Mom brought out a gift-wrapped box. This is for you, Vanessa. I know your birthday's still a few weeks off, but I saw it and just had to get it early. Vanessa squealed. A knife set, like the fancy kind. Professional grade, Mom beamed. So you can show them off in your cooking videos. My fingers curled around my napkin. Tight. Then Dad looked at me. Emily, can you pass the glasses? I reached for the pitcher. My hand was still unsteady. The glass slipped. It wasn't a dramatic crash this time, just a thunk, a splash of water, and a wet spot spreading across Dad's khakis. Emily, he barked, leaping up. What is wrong with you? Everyone froze. My heart thudded, but I stayed still. Dad grabbed a towel, muttering under his breath. Then louder, you're such a useless daughter sometimes, I swear. The room fell into complete silence, and something inside me shifted. I stood up, slowly, the kind of movement that draws attention without needing to shout. I'm sorry, I said, but my voice didn't tremble this time. I looked at Vanessa. Maybe you can clean it up. I've been paying your mortgage for 4 months. I think that earns me 1 glass. Vanessa's jaw dropped. Mom blinked. Emily, you didn't know? I asked, turning toward her. Oh. I guess Vanessa forgot to mention that while you were bragging about her branding genius. Dad stared at me like I'd spoken another language. I reached into my bag, pulled out a small, tidy envelope, placed it on the table. This is a record of every payment I made with receipts since March. Nobody moved. Vanessa's voice cracked. Emily, I was going to tell them. When, before or after you launched your 6-week course on personal integrity, she opened her mouth, then closed it. I turned to my mother. You said you're proud of her. What exactly are you proud of? Don't be cruel, Mom whispered. Cruel? I laughed, quiet but real. I gave thousands of dollars I didn't owe. I showed up every Sunday. I passed every dish and never asked for anything, not even a thank you. Dad sat back down, still dazed. Why didn't you say something earlier? Because I thought maybe love looked like patience, like sacrifice. I looked around the table. But now I know what it actually looks like, being noticed. No one spoke. I picked up my bag. Oh, I added as I stepped toward the door, and happy birthday, Vanessa. Then I left, not with a scream, not with a slammed door, just with the kind of silence that fills a room after a truth finally lands. The night after the dinner, I didn't cry. I thought I might. I even poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the edge of my bed, waiting for the tears to come. But they didn't. Instead, what came was a strange kind of calm. Like the moment after a hurricane when the windows stop rattling and the air feels heavy but clean. I had said the truth. Out loud, in front of all of them, and no one could take it back now. They couldn't pretend not to know, not anymore. Still, the silence the next day was deafening. No texts. No calls. No weak apology or subtle gaslight wrapped in faux concern. Just nothing. I went to work, sorted spreadsheets, answered emails. Took the long route home just for the quiet of the drive. I kept checking my phone out of habit, but it stayed blank until Wednesday night. I was folding laundry when the screen lit up. Mom, I let it go to voicemail. Then came Vanessa. Then Dad. Then a string of messages that filled my screen one by one like pebbles hitting a glass window. Mom, you didn't have to humiliate her like that. Vanessa, please call me. We need to talk. Dad, that was uncalled for, Emily. You could have spoken to us privately. I stared at the screen, reading each line like a court transcript. No one said thank you. No one said, I'm sorry. They were upset because I had embarrassed them, not because I'd been ignored. That was the moment I knew something permanent had shifted. Not in them. In me. I didn't want to be the family ghost anymore. But I also didn't want to fight for scraps of love that came with conditions. A few days later, I met with Dr. Brooks again. She offered me tea this time. I took it. So, she said gently, how did it feel finally saying what you've been holding for so long? I thought for a moment. Like opening a window that had been painted shut for years, she smiled. And how do you feel now? I shrugged. Lighter but sad, because now I know they heard me, and they still chose silence. She nodded. Sometimes when we finally tell the truth, we expect it to rewrite the past, but the truth only ever reveals it. I sat with that. Let it settle. I don't regret saying it, I added. I thought maybe they'd reach out differently. Dr. Brooks didn't answer right away. Then she asked, what would reaching out differently have looked like to you? I blinked. The answer came fast. A letter, a real apology, a voice that shook when it said my name. Instead, they'd sent shame. What I'd done was dramatic, tactless, unnecessary. But it wasn't untrue. I'd handed them the truth. And they flinched from the light of it. That was on them. That weekend, I started packing. Not out of impulse, but intention. The condo I'd been eyeing for months had finally come back on the market. Cozy, sunlit, just enough space to feel like mine. It wasn't just about moving. It was about letting go of that folder I had marked for them. There would be no more secret payments. No more silent sacrifices disguised as love. The next phase of my life wouldn't be an audition. I was done trying to earn a seat at a table that never made room for me. The knock came 2 weeks later. I had just finished signing the lease on my new condo. A small place, 1 bedroom, warm hardwood floors, just enough echo to remind me it was mine. The moving truck was booked. I'd boxed up the last of my things, everything labeled and neatly stacked in my living room. It should have been a celebratory day, but the knock came anyway. I opened the door to find Vanessa standing there. No makeup. Hair pulled into a limp ponytail. Eyes ringed with something that looked like exhaustion or regret, or maybe just the weight of being found out. Hey, she said softly, like we hadn't gone weeks without speaking. Do you have a minute? I considered saying no, not out of spite, but because, truly, I didn't. Not for the version of her that might be standing on my doorstep to fix her feelings. But I stepped aside anyway. I always had a soft spot for maybe. She sat on the edge of my couch, hands twisting in her lap. I needed to say something before you move, she started. I waited. I didn't think you'd actually stop paying, she admitted, letting out a breathy half-laugh. I guess I always thought you'd just keep doing it, that you liked helping. That word, liked, hit harder than it should have. No, I said quietly. I liked feeling needed. I thought maybe if I kept helping, someone would notice. She looked down. I did notice. I raised an eyebrow. Then why didn't you say anything? Because I was scared and selfish, and I thought if I acknowledged it, I'd owe you something. I stared at her. She wasn't wrong. She looked around my apartment like it was a stranger's home. Mom and Dad are furious, she said after a moment. They say you embarrassed the family. I told the truth, she nodded. I know, they just don't like when someone changes the story. There it was again, that quiet flicker of honesty. Late. But maybe not worthless. I guess I came here because I wanted to ask if we could still be sisters, even if everything's different now. I studied her. This wasn't an apology, not really. It wasn't reparation. It was a request for comfort from the person she'd made invisible. Still, I didn't hate her, I just didn't owe her anything anymore. I don't know what that looks like, I said, honestly. I think we have to let things be broken for a while, not pretend they weren't. Ders sank. Yeah, okay. I walked her to the door. She hesitated before stepping outside. You know, she said softly, I told Mom I think you were right about everything, she just doesn't know how to admit she was wrong. I nodded. That's not my responsibility anymore. A long pause. Then she stepped off the porch, turned back, and added one last thing. I don't think I ever thanked you for the mortgage, for all of it. No, I said. You didn't. She looked down. Thank you, Emily. I nodded once. Take care of your house. And I closed the door. This time I didn't feel guilty. This time I didn't go watch through the blinds. I just sat on the floor surrounded by boxes and breathed. No confrontation. No screaming match. Just a quiet boundary, firm and complete. That night I took the for them folder out of my drawer. I didn't rip it. I didn't burn it. I just set it down in the trash and closed the lid. Some stories don't need to be kept once you've learned how to stop living inside them. Sunday came, the way it always did. But this one was different. No buzzing phone with reminders about sparkling water. No anxious glances at the clock, wondering if I'd be late for a dinner where I'd be invisible. No casseroles reheated in borrowed ovens. No performance. For the first time in years, I wasn't expected. And I didn't go. Instead, I opened the windows in my new condo and let the cool breeze in. I played the kind of music I loved, the kind that wouldn't make sense over dinner conversations about Vanessa's latest brand pivot. I cooked just for me. Pasta with roasted tomatoes, garlic, fresh basil. I used real plates. Poured myself a glass of wine. Lit a candle I'd been saving for something special. It was strange at first. Not the loneliness, I'd lived with that for years. What was strange was the peace. There was no tension buzzing in my chest. No scanning the room for signs of acknowledgement. No waiting for a crumb of gratitude disguised as politeness. It was quiet, but not empty. After dinner, I sat on the couch with my legs curled beneath me, watching the sun dip behind the buildings across the street. It cast a warm glow through my living room, lighting up boxes I hadn't unpacked yet. One of them was labeled Keep, but not sure why. I opened it. Inside were remnants of my old self. A half-filled gratitude journal I never had time to finish. Childhood drawings I had done in the background while Vanessa twirled in her costumes. A mug that said Best Sister Ever. A joke gift from Vanessa years ago that now felt ironic. At the bottom, folded tightly, was a letter I had written to myself on my 30th birthday. I'd forgotten about it. I unfolded it, heart thudding. Dear Emily, if you're reading this, it means you made it through another year of being good, being dependable, being small so others could shine. I hope you found your voice. I hope you've stopped waiting to be picked. I hope you know you were never supposed to earn love by disappearing. If you haven't yet, please don't give up. She's in there, the version of you who laughs loudly and cries in the daylight, who says no without guilt, who shows up for herself first. She's worth becoming. Love, me. I read it twice. By the third time I was crying. Not the kind of crying I did before alone, in secret, swallowing it down before anyone noticed. This was different, this was release. On Monday I got a text from Dad. Sunday didn't feel the same without you. Vanessa brought that salad again. Your mom was quiet, we miss you. No apology, no acknowledgement, just a vague hand reaching out into the fog. I stared at the message for a long time, not angry, just clear. And then I typed back, "I'm glad you missed me. That means you noticed I was there before. Let me know when you're ready for a real conversation." I didn't expect a reply. None came, but I didn't need one. The next day, I brought my folder of savings to a bank appointment. I'd been working toward a small dream I hadn't told anyone about, launching my own financial consulting service for women who felt unheard in their families and workplaces. Women like me. It was still just a seed, but it was mine. Untouched by family expectations or roles I never agreed to play. When the banker asked me what name I wanted for the business account, I smiled and said, "Ghost Ledger," a nod to who I'd been, a promise to never be invisible again. I didn't expect anything to happen after I sent that text to my father. Honestly, I thought it might end there. No response, just silence again. But silence can shift things, especially when it's intentional. 4 days later, I got an email. Not a text, not a call, an actual email from my mother. The subject line read, "Let's talk." I clicked on it with a strange calm in my chest. Not dread, not hope, just curiosity. "Emily, I've been thinking about what you said, at dinner, about what you've done. And about what we haven't done. I didn't know you were paying Vanessa's mortgage. I wish I could say that if I had known, I would have stopped it immediately, but the truth is, I'm not sure I would have. That's hard to admit. We've gotten so used to you being the one who doesn't need anything. It made it easier to focus on Vanessa because she always demanded more. Loudly. But that wasn't fair to you, or to the kind of woman you've become in spite of us. I don't know how to fix it, but I'd like to try. Mom, I read it twice. Maybe 3 times. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't everything I had ever wanted. But it was more than I thought she was capable of. There was no glittering epiphany, no rush to forgive. For the first time in my life, I saw a crack in her certainty. And through that crack, maybe, just maybe, a different kind of relationship could start. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I forwarded it to Dr. Brooks. Her reply came an hour later. "Progress isn't the apology. It's how you choose to move forward from it." And I chose that night to move forward differently. Sunday came again. I didn't go to their house. I didn't cook anything or answer texts. But I did go for a walk. Just around the neighborhood near my new place. Quiet streets, clean sidewalks, kids riding scooters, couples arguing gently about paint samples. As I turned the corner, I spotted a community board near a coffee shop. One flyer stood out. "Women supporting women. Local meetup for freelancers, creators, and business starters. Free coffee. No judgment, just space." I snapped a photo of it, thinking about the folder labeled for them that now lived in a recycling bin. About how long I had made my decisions in secret, hoping to be seen by people who never looked up. Now I wanted to be seen by people who looked in. Later that week, I attended the meetup. Walked in late, still unsure. There were 12 women around the table, and not one of them knew me as the quiet sister, the dependable daughter, the ghost who handled the bills. They just saw me as Emily. When I introduced myself, I felt my voice shake. But I didn't hide it. "I'm starting a consulting service for women like us," I said, "who give too much, who have been taught that our value is tied to how invisible we can be. I want to help them find their numbers and their voices." One woman across from me, mid-40s, confident, crisp blazer, nodded slowly. "That's brave," she said. "That's needed." I almost cried, not because she saw me, but because she believed me. Vanessa texted again the following week. "Saw your new site. It's beautiful. Are you really doing this?" I stared at the message. My answer was simple. "Yes, I am." She didn't reply, and that was okay. Because now I wasn't building for her, I kept working. Set up consultations. Took business calls. Designed worksheets that explained debt, budgeting, and value through the lens of self-worth. I called the first module "What You Pay That No One Sees." Women responded. A nurse who'd been financially supporting her ex-husband. A teacher who kept bailing her sister out of late fees. A single mom who never let herself buy new shoes while buying everyone else's birthdays. They cried, they laughed, they booked again. And with every session I felt it, that ripple I never expected. The one that starts inside you the moment you stop asking, "Do they see me yet?" Because now I saw myself, and I was worth seeing. It happened on a quiet Sunday night. I was curled up on the couch, a cup of tea cooling on the coffee table when the phone rang. Not my cell, my landline. The one only 3 people had the number to. I let it ring twice, then picked it up. "Hi, sweetheart," Dad said. His voice was softer, measured. "Hey," I replied, setting down the mug. I saw your name in that community newsletter, your business, the story they wrote about you about helping women with their finances. It was a good piece." I waited. He cleared his throat. "Didn't know all that was happening. What you were building, I guess we missed it." I didn't rush to fill the silence. He let out a breath. "And about the things I said, that night, what I said to you." The pause was longer now. "I shouldn't have called you useless. I was angry, embarrassed, but that wasn't fair. You've done more for this family than any of us ever admitted." I looked across the room at my calendar where the word launch was written in bold marker. A small arrow pointed to Emily equals scene. "You're right," I said quietly. He didn't argue. "I'm proud of you," he added, voice tight. I just didn't know how to say that before. I closed my eyes. The apology wasn't perfect, but it was real. For once, not because someone else prompted him, not to save face, just because he finally understood. "Thanks, Dad," I said. "That means something." He hesitated. "Your mom's been quiet lately, a little lost to be honest. We're both trying to understand what we missed. I think we leaned on you because you never asked us not to." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "I know. And your sister, she's figuring it out too, slowly." "She always figures things out eventually," I said. No bitterness, just truth. Another beat passed. "Well," he said, "if you ever feel like joining us again, maybe not every Sunday, but sometime, there's always a seat." That made me pause. The offer was simple. No pressure, no demand, no guilt trip disguised as a plea for unity, just a seat. "I'll think about it," I said, and this time I meant it. Later that night, I stood in the doorway of my living room, lights dimmed, the city humming outside my window. I looked around at everything I had built. The framed print on the wall that read, "You don't need to earn space you already take up." The sticky notes on my laptop with names of new clients. The plant I remembered to water. The silence that no longer felt like absence but presence. For so long, I thought my worth was tied to what I could give, how quietly I could carry the weight of others. I thought invisibility was the price of being the good one. But I was wrong. You don't have to disappear to be loved. You don't have to fund someone else's facade to matter. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do isn't yelling or demanding or proving. It's walking away from a table that taught you to starve, and building your own where you feed yourself first. 1 year later, on my next birthday, I sat at that very table. This time, there was no forgetting. My phone buzzed all day. Friends. Clients, a few strangers who had found my story online. Vanessa even sent flowers. No card, but I knew who they were from. At dinner, I looked around my table, 4 women I'd met through my work. We toasted with lemonade and wine, laughed until tears rolled down our cheeks. No costumes, no contests, no performances, just presence. When they left, I cleaned up slowly, humming under my breath. I wrote in my journal before bed, something I hadn't done in months. I used to pay to be seen. Now I live in full view, for myself, and that's enough. Then I turned off the light and let the quiet hold me, not as a punishment but as peace. 3 months after that birthday dinner, I found myself back in the neighborhood I once escaped. It wasn't planned. I'd gone to a client meeting across town, and on the drive back, muscle memory pulled me into familiar streets, tree-lined identical houses that curve in the road just before the cul-de-sac. I passed my parents' house. The porch was the same. The ceramic welcome sign still crooked, the garden flag fluttering with some seasonal pun about pumpkins or coffee. For a second I considered pulling into the driveway. I didn't, but I did stop across the street. Rolled down my window, watched. Vanessa's SUV was there, a newer model, probably leased. I imagined her inside, maybe helping Mom with dishes or giving Dad a rundown of her next campaign. I imagined them all there, filling the house with stories I used to want to be written into. But this time, I didn't feel excluded. I just felt free. I had spent years craving a seat at a table where my name was never engraved on a chair. Now I had my own table, and chairs for others. Women who reached out to me from all over asking for help understanding their money, their patterns, their families, their boundaries. Asking how I found my way out. I told them the truth every time, slowly, quietly, then all at once. It still startled me sometimes. How easy it is to mistake peace for emptiness when you've spent your life in chaos. I used to fill every silent moment with work, giving, shrinking, apologizing. Now silence feels earned, like exhaling after a storm. One night I got an email from a new client. Her subject line read, "I think I'm the Emily in my family." That line stayed with me. Not because I needed to be known or copied or admired, but because I remembered that feeling. That exact moment when you realize, oh, it's not just me, I'm not crazy, I'm not selfish, I'm not wrong for wanting something back. I responded the next morning, you're not the only one, you're just the one brave enough to say it out loud. Let's work together to change that story. A year after I stopped the mortgage payments, I took the last savings from what I used to call my emergency guilt fund and did something bold. I booked a solo trip, 10 days, no itinerary. A cabin near the ocean. No family, no clients, no obligations, just me. The Emily who once waited by her phone hoping to be remembered. The Emily who tiptoed through life afraid of asking for too much. She came too. But this time, she sat next to the version of me who'd stopped apologizing for taking up space. And for the first time, I felt like every version of me could breathe in the same room. No masks. No shrinking, just being.